So how has the response been?
Well, it's been hugely challenging. I think that's the first thing. I think also for all the people involved in the response, it's been, it has been a bit of a privilege actually. I think, working for your community in its worst times, I think that's a huge privilege. So for me personally as well, our role is all about service to our communities, and hugely challenging times for and a lot of people affected, way worse than what we were, and I think that and also I think the other thing is that the way that the communities came together and supported the response, were part of the response, the way that all the different agencies came together. I just think that was, it was huge, really, and yeah.
And what have you been able to achieve during this time?
Well, I think, this all started on the Friday before the event, so we've been activated for over 77 days, and I think there's a number of phases in the whole response. There was the preparedness stage where a lot of public information went out, and people got themselves prepared. So I think that was an achievement in itself. I think the coordinating the response that happened during the actual cyclone itself, really difficult times. Lack of information, no power, no cell phone. And I think we just got to remind ourselves of that, and I think playing our part in that as well with our emergency services partners, and then the next stage of the response really was around the well-being of people, the ongoing well-being, particularly around food, accommodation, and water and the such like. And then sort of heading into the recovery, the transition into the recovery, the coordinating the infrastructure, coordinating the infrastructure repairs and all the rest of it with our critical infrastructure providers in Hawke's Bay. So I think look, there's a lot of hard work to go, and now we're transitioned into the recovery. The recovery agencies are being stood up. Local councils have taken back their communities and are starting to work with them towards their recovery. And so, I think that has been sort of the key achievements, I suppose, and I think as a community, Hawke's Bay, I think, there are people who are significantly impacted. We lost 8 people, but I think as a community, I think we will come out of this stronger.
And talking about the recovery phase now, what does that exactly mean?
So it's more of the councils now. I mean, this is about building back, and there's a whole lot of conversations that I'm sure people will be aware of around things like areas that are not going to be able to be developed on again. There's a whole lot of infrastructure that we've still got bridges in Hawke's Bay which need to be repaired. Our railway bridge between Napier and Hastings still needs to be repaired. So that's that sort of side of things. But I think there's also like social recovery as a key thing as well. There'll be a lot of people out there that will feel the impacts of this well into the future, economically, socially. And so, it's how does central government, local government, other agencies sort of wrap around those people for the next few years, probably. That's really a key part of the recovery as well.
Mm-hmm. And what's the role of civil defence during this time?
Yeah, so at this time we're not obviously leading it. We are supporting it where that's required. But the key thing for us really is we're having to be prepared for other events, and we need to be free to respond to other events. And 2 days ago we had 2 earthquakes, and so we had to respond to that. We had to put out public information, we had to coordinate with the National Emergency Management Agency and GNS to get information to give to people. So that's really a key thing for us is how do we regenerate that response capability. We don't have a huge team. We've got about 14 positions here, 14 staff, and so people need to have a break. As I talked about, 77 days, it's a long time. So people will need to have a break. Some of those people, there's I think about 4 or 5 of my people actually had damage to their own houses, and one of them was flooded. So there's all of that stuff that we have to do as well. And be prepared and for the next emergency. And also, I think it's part of the recovery process, but there will be a lessons learned and review process which we will be involved in to improve the system for next time.